All right, what's going on? Welcome to week 4 of the Fantasy Life. As always, I'm the Big AC Andy Chevalier here with my partner in crime, Coach Chris Dacosta. Coach, how'd you do week 3 in fantasy this week?
Week 3, I won in every league except for one. It's one of those. It's the league that I care about the most, and it's the one that I can't win. I'm 0-3.
Coach, I totally understand. I had the complete opposite week. I went 1-5. I had pretty one of the worst fantasy weeks I've ever had. It just did not go right. Faced Julio Jones and Matt Ryan in a couple of leagues. Just wasn't meant to be. Wasn't
I
meant.
had Julio Jones in one league, so.
Ugh, there we go. All right, Coach, let's talk about our hits and misses from week 3. We had a couple hits. We had a couple of misses. First, our hits. Torrey Smith, we were right. This guy's just invisible. This guy's virtually unstartable. What do you think, Coach? Is this guy even rosterable from here on out?
I think you keep him on your bench. You never know. Dennis Pitta's been hurt. He might be a factor now moving forward without Pitta going, but I think Steve Smith is your Torrey Smith this year.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not liking him at all. Kiri Robinson, we were off on him. Wow, we thought he was all in line to have a great game. Not really. 69 on the ground, 0 catches. That's what I was probably most surprised about. You can expect this from here on forward?
I think so. I think he still got 18 touches. Mark Ingram's still out. They believe in him. He had more touches than Pierre Thomas did. He just vultured a touchdown. And against Dallas this weekend, I think you got to keep him. And if it's 2 weeks in a row like this, then maybe you can drop him. But I think this could be a good week for him.
You got to assume the catches are going to go up too. Like, come on, that's ridiculous. Lamar Miller, we're off a little bit too. I like Lamar Miller a lot this week. Last week he had 100 on the ground, over 100 on the ground against KC. Wow, I thought this guy was just a ham and egger, but he looks pretty decent, Coach. What do you think?
I mean, I told you last week I thought he'd be okay. I didn't hate him as much as you. I did call him Lamar Garbage Miller because I hate him, but I did think it was a good matchup. I think moving forward, he's a guy that is worth starting, not even just rostering, but starting. He'll be all right until Moreno comes back.
Yeah, I like him a lot this week. I really do. All right, Coach, let's do a little start-'em, sit-'em this week. Start-'em, sit-'em. Let's start with Matt Asiata, the ass man, against the Atlanta Falcons. What do you think, man? Start him or sit him?
I think you got to start him. Minnesota, especially with Teddy Bridgewater starting, they're going to be handing the ball off a little bit early. I know they believe in Teddy, but Asiata, whenever he starts, he performs. I mean, last week might have been his worst week in his last 7 starts, and he still got 8 or 9 points. So I believe in this guy. I think he's a guy that's undervalued. I think he's a running back 2 for the season, believe it or not. I think he's a quality. He's going to get his touches. He's going to get the touches.
I like him too, Coach, and I'll tell you what. The Falcons, I mean, they've given up 5 on the ground already this year. 5 touchdowns on the ground. And Asiata, what he lacks in the run game, and he's only averaging just over 2 yards a carry, which is pretty awful. But he makes up for it in the air. He's catching more passes, so it's kind of evening out. I agree with you, Coach. He is an RB2. Let's stick with the same position. Chris Ivory. Do you start or sit Chris Ivory against a tough Detroit Lions defense?
Now, that Detroit Lions defense is pretty good. I think it's going to be an up-and-coming defense, to be honest with you. But if I were to tell you or ask you who's a top 10 running back right now that's on pace for 1,300 yards, would you believe Chris Ivory is that running back? And this week, Rex Ryan probably stated in a news conference that he's going to get more touches than C.J. Halfke. Chris Johnson's not the guy he used to be. You know, tread on those wheels. I don't know what's going on there. But I think Chris Ivory's starting to become the starter there. It's not official. It's not on paper. But by touches, by performance, I like Chris Ivory a lot moving forward, not just this week, but especially this week.
The guy's averaging double-digit fantasy points a week, Coach. A week. And reason. Also, this is just shocking because if you know anything about Chris Ivory, the guy doesn't catch passes. He had 5 catches in his career. Going into this last game he caught 4 passes. So he almost duplicated his career catches in one game. They're using him in the air, Coach. I hate to say it, Chris Ivory.
And you know what? The Jets have been in close games, too. Every game they've lost or won has been by 1 possession, pretty much. That Monday night game against Chicago, big stage, they don't look like a terrible team, even though I still think of the Jets as a bad team in general. But Geno looks like he can be okay. And I don't know. I don't mind having Chris Ivory on my squad, even though that offense is well below subpar.
One more running back, Coach. Bernard Pierce, Baltimore Ravens. You starting or sitting Bernard Pierce this week?
No. I don't believe in Bernie.
Stinker, huh?
I believe in Lorenzo. I think Lorenzo Taliaferro, I not say his last name right, is going to end up is going to be taking that starting spot at some point. He's a rookie, but John Harbaugh believes him in. believes in him. He said that this week that he's going to be his performance speaks for itself, aka I like this guy but don't want to give my starter a lack of confidence because we're going with him for one more try here. Bernie played okay a couple weeks ago, 96 yards, but his health history has not been on his side, and I just don't see it. I think he's going to be overtaken. I'm not a Bernie fan at all.
I don't like him this week, but I will say this. I do think it's his job to lose. Don't forget, week 2, people forget, he had 20 carries for over 100 yards on the ground. Carolina is a good run defense. Yeah, they just let up a bunch against Lev Bell and LeGarry Blount. That game was kind of a weird game to me. Carolina is still very, very, very good against the run. I'm not liking Bernie this week, but I do like him going in the future. I like him next week. It's a really good matchup next week. And I do think it's his job. I'm not buying the whole Taliaferro, Justin Forsett are going to really cut into his, especially Forsett. Not really buying into that. I think it's Bernie's job to lose. That being said, I don't like him this week. Coach, how about a couple of receivers? I'm going to throw a couple of guys at you. Steve Smith, he's like the hottest commodity nowadays. We were talking about how we hate Torrey Smith. You got to like Steve Smith then, right?
You know, I do like Steve Smith, but for this week, let me tell you something. I love guys that are passionate. I love guys that are fiery. I like guys that go into games with an objective and an intention. But Steve Smith is the guy I like for this season. I don't like him this week. He's playing against his former team in Carolina. I don't know if you saw, but on week 1 he scored an 80-yard touchdown, and he ran right to the camera and said, "You don't think I can play anymore, you mother effers? I'm coming after you in week 4." He's been thinking about this game for a while. He's an emotional guy, and I think because of this, he's going to, his mind is going to be there more than his focus. I think Flacco's going to force it into him. I think that the defense is ready for it. I think he's a guy you start because who else are you going to start probably with your team if you have Steve Smith there? But I don't think he's going to perform the way you'd like him to this week.
Interesting. I am a big believer in guys doing well against their old teams. I just feel like the more I watch football, the more I feel like, examples, Deshaun Jackson, the more you just feel like, gosh, they just always seem to score against their previous team. But I do agree. I think Steve Smith might buy just because it's week 4, tons of bye weeks. You have to start Steve Smith this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good transition, Coach, into our new segment I want to start doing, buy or sell. A couple of guys either would buy while they're low, sell while they're high. Let's start with the guy we were just talking about, Steve Smith. You buying or selling Steve Smith from here on forward, Coach?
I sound like a flip-flopper. I sound contradictory, but I'm buying. I am all in on Steve Smith. He's a guy I want for the season. Torrey Smith, gone. Maybe comes back with Dennis Pitta, but Pitta also gone. Running back situation in Baltimore, the guy that's rotating every week, who's your person? Who's the consistent? Who's the guy that's building rapport every weekday in practice? It's Steve Smith. Steve Smith's the guy that Flacco's looking to, and I think he's going to continue that, especially in a PPR league. I think Steve Smith's your man. I think he's a guy I would like on my team, and if I have him, I would try to either trade him for somebody, trade while his value is high, or keep him for the long haul. He's a good player.
Now, when you say you buy him high, you like him going forward, how much would you trade, Coach? How much would you trade for Steve Smith? I mean, yeah, his value is pretty high right now. What type of guys do you think you have to trade to get a Steve Smith?
I would trade like upper end flex guys, like maybe an Andre Ellington if you don't need a running back and you're stacked.
Wow, that high, Coach. Wow.
I think so. I don't know if I'd personally do it, but I would say that type of player is kind of on the same level. If you have Doug Martin and somebody still believes in him, I think Doug Martin obviously is a good running back. He's still a running back 2 based on history. This year, not so much, but I don't know if he's going to have the season that you're going to want from him. So sell while people still believe before Dougie shows you that he can't perform week in, week out, which he's starting to do already. So,
Coach, how about another receiver, Emmanuel Sanders? This guy couldn't have started off hotter. Buy or sell Emmanuel Sanders from here on forward?
2 words, Peyton Manning. Emmanuel Sanders was in Pittsburgh. People believed in him, and then when he was a rookie, second-year guy, and he had some touchdown catches and things like that last year, not too much yardage. But Peyton Manning is putting him on a different level. Wes Welker's there, and he's coming back from injury or suspension, I should say. But Emmanuel Sanders has put up more and more numbers each and every week. And Demaryius Thomas hasn't been looked at as much as he's been drafted for. I do believe Demaryius comes back a little bit. But in that offense, I think if you get any piece of the top 3 guys, Emmanuel is last year's Eric Decker. And would you buy Eric Decker last year? You would. So I think you got to go roll with Emmanuel. I think he's a guy that you keep around for the long haul for sure.
I think he's definitely a clear-cut wide receiver too. Peyton Manning's going to sling the rock. He's not going to stop. People who bring up the Wes Welker argument, I'm just saying concussion, man. The
Yeah,
guy's just one headshot away from just living in a home because that guy is just done upstairs. Like one more
and
shot, he's a Jordan Reed, just unstartable.
And you know what? And Peyton Manning, he believes guys he trusts.
Yep.
If you prove to him each and every week that you're not dropping passes and you're making plays, he's going your way. Thus, why Demaryius hasn't gotten the ball as much so far, because he's had some big drops so far this year.
Sanders has definitely turned out to be just one of the way better mid-round guys to draft. Let's keep it in Denver, Coach. You mentioned his name, Demaryius Thomas. You going to hold on to Demaryius Thomas? You going to try to shop him? What do you think?
Depending on your needs, but overall, based on the player, relax. It's been 3 weeks. Richard Sherman in one of those weeks, I don't think it's anything. And even in that game, he caught the big 2-point conversion at the end of the game to tie it up. It's only been 3 weeks. Be patient. Demaryius is coming. Demaryius is coming.
Demaryius is coming. Demaryius coming. All right, Coach. Let's go to a little either or. Another new segment we want to start here. Gonna give Gonna give you two guys. Who do you like going forward? All right. I'm gonna give you 3 scenarios. Here's the first one. It's gonna be between 2 running backs, 2 first-round running backs, probably drafted within the first 5 picks. Jamal Charles, Eddie Lacy. Who would you rather have moving forward?
You wouldn't think this would be a problem a few weeks ago, right? The first-round running backs are not giving you what you're hoping. They're either suspended, not playing well, or getting injured. It's been a crazy year for running backs.
Coach. The top 5, Adrian Peterson, McCoy, Forte, Lacy. Oh, my. What's going on?
Yeah, the best one's been Forte, and he has been terrible.
Chicago's last in the NFL, Coach. Chicago's last in the NFL in rushing. Jacksonville is beating them in rushing.
Mm-hmm.
That's awful. All right, either or. Eddie Lacy, Jamal Charles. What do you think?
For me, I don't think you can go wrong here. I think it's a little bit of a 50-50. But when Jamal Charles is healthy, he changes your team. He makes your roster winnable every week. He's capable of 25-plus points every week, especially in the PPR, half-point PPR format. I like Eddie Lacy. He might be in a little bit of a sophomore slump, but when Green Bay struggles, they don't go to him anymore. They start slinging it around to Cobb, to Devonta Adams, Jordy. There are multiple running tight ends out there. If I had to pick one, I'd lean towards Charles because I think he's got a higher upside. And Lacy, I think he's starting to enter that concussion window too. I feel like last season he had a concussion. This season he's had a concussion. He's 1 away from being out for 2 weeks at a time. So for me, it's Jamal Charles all the way. What do you think?
Coach, I'm going to disagree. I'm going to go Eddie Lacy. I rarely disagree with you, but I really think this guy is going to be the future. He's younger. Yeah, he's got the concussion thing. That does scare me. That is a very good point. Jamal Charles got a lingering injury, though, and I'll tell you what, Niles Davis doesn't look like that much of a downgrade, Coach. He doesn't look like that much of a downgrade. KC has no problem giving the ball to Niles Davis. Jamal Charles is a 5-touchdown guy. He has that potential to score you 5 touchdowns a game, Eli Manning style, Anyways, I don't even want to talk about Eli Manning right now, Coach.
And you know what?
I like Eddie Lacy going forward. Eddie Lacy faced a top 5 rush D the first 3 weeks. Seattle, Detroit, New York Jets. He's had a really rough patch, but I love his schedule moving forward. I would love Lacy from here on out. I think both guys are going to do good. I think Jamal Charles is going to be that injury report every week, though. I like Lacy going forward. How about these 2 guys, Coach? These are 2 guys whose value could not be higher. They were guys who were drafted next to the bottom if they were drafted. Mm-hmm. Antonio Gates, Steve Smith. Who is safer moving forward?
Well, you know how I feel about my boy Steve Smith, even though I'm not playing him this week if I can avoid it.
Mm-hmm.
I can look down the future and predict. I'm going to say, Antonio Gates, I'm sorry. I should have believed in you. You got it. You're an old man, but you still got the hands in the route running, and Phillip Rivers throwing you the ball. I believe you said some stuff like this before, AC, not too long ago. But if I have to pick one, I got to go with Steve Smith. Part of that, again, is his talent. Part of that is Torrey Smith is just not involved in the offense. And I think that's Flacco's just going to him, and that's a safety blanket now moving forward is Stephen Smith Sr. So that's what I think. What do you think?
Coach, I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go Steve Smith. I think he's the safer guy moving forward. Kind of funny because I just made a trade for Steve Smith for Antonio Gates and Alfred Blue. Really needed the tight end help, and I had the wide receiver depth. But I do think Steve Smith going forward is the safer guy. Antonio Gates, a lot of his production has been touchdowns. And touchdowns in my mind are fluky. Steve Smith is getting the yards no matter what, whether it's a touchdown or not. So I like Steve Smith going forward. I think he's a safer play. Last either or, Coach, 2 quarterbacks. Try to ignore last night's game if you can. Tom Brady or Kirk Cousins? Who's safer going forward?
For me, I'm going to ignore last night, no problem. Kirk Cousins is the guy I want on my team. My brother actually has Brady and Cousins, and he's playing the wrong guy each week, and it's kind of hysterical to watch. But Kirk Cousins, my man, RG3 is going to be gone. I truly believe he's so injury prone, they're going to try to trade him around. He's not coming back for weeks at a time, probably 6 to 7 at this point at least. Brady, that offensive line looks dreadful in New England, looks just terrible. How can you not go for Kirk Cousins? He's throwing the ball downfield. Can't remember, and I watch the Patriots every week with the roommates. I can't remember a time I've seen Brady throw the ball more than 30 yards downfield unless Brandon LaFell was there to drop it. So I'm going Kirk Cousins all day. Looks like you're sipping the Kool-Aid, though.
I'm sorry, Coach. What are you saying? I was just drinking out of my Patriots mug. Coach, how can you go against touchdown Tommy? Don't forget, this is a guy who threw 50 touchdown passes. He's having a rough start. The O-line looks pretty bad. But he's got to sling the rock to win, man. You got to go touchdown Tommy over Kirk Cousins. What you thinking, man? All right, let's go really quickly. Survivor League. Who you liking this week? We did good with New England last week. It was a little bit scary. Who you liking this week?
I think all day you got to go San Diego. They look good. They're playing tough defense. When a cross-country beat Buffalo, that was a hot team on the road. They beat Seattle. They lost close to Arizona on Monday night. It was a team that's got a great defense in themselves and 3-0. They're going against a rookie quarterback at home, and it's Jacksonville. Not to pick on Jacksonville. I think they might pull off a couple wins this year, but how do you not go San Diego this week? I'm all in on the Chargers, just like I was last week on the Patriots.
San Diego all day, brother. 100% with you on that. You got to go San Diego. Coach, again, I win week 3. Fitzgerald versus Michael Floyd. Floyd had a pretty big game. 5 catches, 114 in the air. Fitz with 3 and 34. I'm winning that battle, Coach. Good job.
You are. You're dominating. Fitzy's not looking like himself, and John Brown's coming into the conversation. So we'll see what happens.
Fitz fumbled the ball, too. That's kind of weird. All right, really quickly, Coach, with 1 minute, let's wrap up these 5 fan mails. We got Jay Roslin asks, Jeremy Curley versus Danny Amendola, full PPR. Who would you go with?
No question, Jeremy Curley all day. Amendola should not be on your roster.
I agree. Jeremy Curley, someone's got to catch the ball. He has another one, too. Jeremy Curley versus Terrence Williams, half-point PPR.
Going against the Saints Sunday night, primetime. Romo somehow does well in primetime games. I think I go Terrence Williams, but if you go Curley here, it won't be the end of the world. Terrence Williams by a hair.
I like them both, too. I would kind of lean towards Terrence Williams, though. You know they're going to air out the ball. All right, our buddy Eric Beers asks, Aaron Rodgers or Colin Kaepernick? You going to bench A-Rod this week, Coach?
Whew, that's a tough one. If I got to be quick, I got to go Kaepernick. That Philly defense does not look good. Kaepernick runs it a little bit. Should be a decently high-scoring game with Philly. Go
You're
Kaepernick.
never benching Captain America, Coach. You never bench Aaron Rodgers. Come on. Colin Kaepernick is a great matchup. You're going to get points either way, but you got to start Aaron Rodgers. He was your first, second-round pick. Come on. What are you thinking? Same guy. Asked Eric Pierce. Who's on the winning side of this trade? Calvin Johnson for Rashad Jennings and Brandon Marshall.
Ooh, you upgraded your roster entirely. I'm going to go with Jennings and Brandon Marshall. Calvin's a monster, one of my favorite players, but you're getting a quality number 1 receiver in Brandon Marshall, which has outperformed Calvin so far this year, but they're not going to be too far apart, and you upgrade your running back 1, maybe 2, at the bare minimum position with Jennings all day. Jennings and Brandon Marshall, no contest.
I like that side, too. I mean, you're getting the better player in Calvin Johnson. You're getting the best player in the deal. Brandon Marshall's a little hurt. Does kind of worry me, but Rashad Jennings has been awesome on the ground. And Brandon Marshall is just, in my opinion, top 5 wide receiver, when in terms of ability. The guy's just ridiculous. John Hutton asks, pick 3 of these players, Coach. Kerry Robinson, Reggie Bush, Travis Kelce, Shane Vereen, Steven Jackson, non-PPR. Kerry Robinson, Reggie Bush, Travis Kelce, Shane Vereen, Steven Jackson.
Well, I think for sure I'm playing Robinson. Great matchup. I think he got the touches. Last week he didn't get the yardage, but I think this week he does. I don't play Reggie Bush against that Jets defense. They've allowed less than 200 yards on the ground this year. I think you bench him and Joik if you had him. So if I had to pick 3, I'm going Robinson. I'm going Kelce because I believe in that tight end. He's getting a lot more touches, and he's on the field for more percentage of snaps. And then, I can't believe I'm saying this, but Steven Jackson over Vereen. Steven Jackson just looks like he's getting the ball. Vereen's been inconsistent, a little injured. a little less touches. Ridley's look good. Robinson,
I
Jackson.
agree 100%, Coach. I would probably. I'm between benching Bush and Kelce. I'm definitely benching Vereen, but I think you got to start Robinson. You got to start Steven Jackson in a non-PPR. And it's between Travis Kelce and Reggie Bush for me. But I'm definitely benching Vereen. Whoever guy you like more, start over that. Jessica Reedy asks, I need 2 starters out of Justin Forsett, Joique Bell, Sean Green, or the Butler, Alfred Blue.
What was the last one?
Alfred Blue.
Oh, Alfred Blue. Man, that's rough. I know I just said bench Joique Bell, but with what you got out there, I don't think Forsett's. I think is the last one on this list. I think Blue you don't start if Foster's gonna go. But if Foster does not go, Blue instantly is the #1 guy here. But if Foster's active, no Blue. I think you got to go Sean Green and Joique Bell, and then if Blue's good, if Foster doesn't go, Blue and Joique. That's what I would do.
I think I would go Joique Bell for sure. And like you said, it would be between Green and Alfred Blue, depending on if Foster starts. But Joique Bell and then probably Sean Green if Foster plays. If he doesn't, Alfred Blue. Last question, Coach. If you have Brian Quick, Dirty Dez, and Wes Welker, Cecil Shorts, Fitzgerald, and Josh Gordon, which one would you drop to get for Week 4 of the bye week? To me, Coach, it's between Brian Quick and Josh Gordon. Who would you drop?
I think I'd drop Brian Quick. If you got this roster, I feel like you have a decent roster moving forward. You're probably 2-1 at this point, maybe 3-0. You've got some pretty good receivers there. You're not playing Quick anyway, so why not drop him and hope for a Hail Mary? Because we get Josh Gordon in just 6 weeks from now. That's the guy you roll with. And you know what? If you want to drop Gordon, don't. Trade him. Somebody wants him in your league. Trade him for something. Don't just drop him.
Coach. I am not a fan of dropping a fantasy starter, to just roster Josh Gordon in hopes that he plays Week 12 and 13 to get you in the playoffs. Trade him to someone who wants him. There's going to be one guy out of the 12 teams in there that's going to go nuts for him. Don't drop a starter to roster Josh Gordon. Trade him. You can get the world, especially in keeper leagues.
If I'm 3-0, I'm going after Josh Gordon right now.
I agree. I 1,000% agree. And if you're 1-2, 0-3 maybe, you gotta look to trade him because you'll get a lot for him. I trust me.
You need to trade him right now. You need to.
Absolutely. All right, Coach. This is going to do it for Week 4 of the Fantasy Life, Coach. Best of luck to you this week. Can't wait to talk more fantasy next week with you.
See you next week. And Mike Evans scores his first touchdown this week.
All right. My bold prediction is Ahmad Bradshaw is going to go bananas this week. Trent Richardson is going to be non-rosterable eventually. You watch. All right, Coach. I hope you had a good time, Coach. We'll see you next week. Good luck, everyone out there at Fantasyland. Hope we got to answer all your questions. Leave any questions and comments below in the video, and we'll do our best to answer them before Sunday's game, and we'll answer them next week if you got trade questions. Until then, I'm the Big AC. That good-looking guy right there is Coach Chris Dacosta. Have a good night, everyone.